The first time Elijah sees her, she's standing alone at the edge of the train platform, clutching a suitcase too big for her frame and hope that's cracking in her eyes. The prairie wind bites, howling past the whitewashed houses of Primrose Hollow. It's 1923, but some folks here still act like it's 1823. Elijah Carter knows this town like the back of his hand, knows which corner store sells to folks like him without watching every dime, knows which church pews let him sit without turning up noses, knows who still calls him boy, even though he's pushing 38 and buried a wife already. He grips his son's small hand as they wait for their delivery. Seeds, tools, maybe a miracle if God's listening this week. But what they get is her. She's not what the town expected. She's not blonde. She's not pale. She's not what the Wilkersons, the ones who placed the ad, thought they were paying for. And judging by the stiff backs and turned shoulders around her, she's not welcome. "You're Elijah Carter, ain't you?" she asks, her voice soft but holding. Elijah blinks. "Ma'am, She glances down at a crumpled letter. "I'm supposed to be meeting my husband here. But the man who sent for me saw my face and he said there'd been a mistake. That the photo wasn't clear. That he don't marry." Her voice trails, and she doesn't finish the sentence. She doesn't have to. Elijah doesn't speak. Neither does his son. The boy just stares at her like he's never seen a woman like her before, which he hasn't. The Wilkersons walk away in a huff. A crowd follows. Murmurs swirl like dust devils. Elijah clears his throat. "You got a place to stay?" She hesitates. "I reckon I don't." He glances at his boy, then back at her. "Come on. You can stay in the loft till we figure something out." That night, she sleeps in the barn. And that night, the letters start. Folded papers slipped under the door. "We don't need her kind here. You're setting a bad example for your boy. Keep your house in order, or someone else will." Elijah doesn't tell her. Not yet. Because he remembers what grief tastes like. He sees it in her, smile stretched too tight, hands that tremble when she thinks no one's looking. Her name is Amara. She says it means grace. He says his son hasn't spoken in months, not since his mama died. Amara says maybe that's something they can work on together. Elijah doesn't believe in hope anymore. But when his son sneaks down the ladder just to sit near her while she hums an old folk lullaby, he wonders. Not everything broken stays that way. But in Primrose Hollow, mended things don't always stay safe. It starts with the chickens. 3 of them dead, necks snapped clean. Elijah finds them in the morning, laid out like a warning beside the coop. No tracks. No blood. Just silence where the farm usually buzzes. "Must have been a fox," he mutters, though he doesn't believe it. Amara's already in the kitchen, stirring cornmeal in a pot, sleeves rolled past her elbows. She hums to herself, soft, sweet. His boy, Micah, sits at the table nibbling on a biscuit, watching her like she's spun from sunlight. Elijah doesn't mention the chickens. Not yet. But the next morning, it's the fence. Wire pulled clean from the posts snapped like twigs. That takes strength, or hatred. Then, a shadow appears. Miss Virginia Olcott, chairwoman of the Ladies' Civic Circle, unofficial mayor of Primrose Hollow, and widow of the wealthiest man this side of the Mississippi, rides up the path in a polished buggy, white lace gloves and a parasol shading her face like she's allergic to reality. "Elijah," she calls, her voice dripping with forced sweetness. "Out here working hard, I see." He tips his hat, wary. "Morning, Miss Olcott." Her eyes drift past him, narrowing when she sees Amara through the window, dicing onions beside Micah. Her lips twitch. "Word around town is you've taken in company," she says. Elijah stiffens. "Just offering someone shelter. That's all." "I'd be careful with that," she replies, adjusting her gloves. "People talk. Children imitate what they see. Our little town's delicate, you know. Built on order, tradition, decent values. Not everything is meant to mix." Elijah doesn't reply. His silence says enough. Virginia leans closer, voice low. "And your boy. You think he understands the message you're sending?" He clenches his jaw. "Micah's got a good heart. That's what he understands." Her smile never reaches her eyes. Well, let's hope hearts don't get broken. She leaves dust in her wake. That night, Elijah finds his barn door ajar. Inside, Amara's suitcase is slashed open, clothes scattered like a warning. Someone's carved the word whore into the old wood beam above her cot. She stands frozen, one hand over her mouth. Micah clutches her skirt. Elijah swears under his breath, then tells her it must have been a trespasser. Just kids being cruel, he lies. But Amara's eyes flicker toward the door. It wasn't kids. Kids don't carve clean block letters. That was a message. He wants to fight back. Wants to grab his shotgun and march into town. But he's a black man with a small farm and a quiet son, and Primrose Hollow has its own kind of law, unwritten but enforced. So he boards the barn door tighter, puts a lock on the fence, and tells himself it'll pass. But every night, he watches the road. And every night, he wonders how much longer until Virginia Olcott, or someone worse, decides warning shots aren't enough. Elijah doesn't sleep that night. He sits by the window with a lantern dimmed low and his grandfather's shotgun across his lap. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of wind in the trees feels like a threat. Amara and Micah sleep in the loft now, close enough that he can hear them breathing. He won't risk her in that barn again. By morning, there's a fresh smear of tar on his fence gate and a dead crow hanging from the latch. That's not random. That's a message. He rides into town. The sheriff's office sits in the square, shaded by a crooked pine tree. Sheriff Tomlin reclines in a chair just outside, boots kicked up. Sipping sweet tea like justice is something that can wait until after lunch. Elijah clears his throat. Sheriff. Tomlin squints at him. Elijah. Everything all right? No, sir, Elijah says. Someone's been trespassing. Vandalism. Harassment. Threats. He lays out each incident, careful and precise. Tomlin listens, then sighs, shaking his head. You sure it's not just wild animals? Kids acting up. Elijah stares. Kids carve slurs. Kids slit hens' throats and hang crows on gates. Tomlin shrugs. Ain't got no proof it was anything racial. Can't stir the town up over feelings. Then investigate. Tomlin chuckles. Ain't no jury in this town gonna convict someone over a dead chicken and some paint. Best you mind your business and keep to your place. Elijah leans in. You mean not take in a black woman who's been thrown away? Tomlin's smile fades. I mean you're making folks nervous, Carter. Primrose Hollow's peaceful. People don't want trouble. Elijah spits in the dirt. I'm not the one bringing it. Back home, he finds Micah drawing on scrap paper. Crayons, bright and smudged. One of the figures is a woman with a yellow dress and braids. Amara. Another is Micah. They're holding hands. Why'd you draw that? Elijah asks. Micah shrugs. She makes the house warm. Elijah's throat tightens. His son hasn't said a full sentence in nearly a year. Later that week, the pastor of New Light Baptist Church comes calling. Reverend Mason is a kind man, middle-aged, soft-spoken, respected by the black folks in town, tolerated by the white ones. He sits with Elijah on the porch. I heard what happened. There's talk. Ugly talk. I figured. They say you're housing sin. That you're flaunting it. Miss Olcott's pushing the town council to investigate you for harboring an illegal resident. Illegal? Elijah laughs bitterly. She came with papers and a promise. Only thing illegal was them leaving her to rot. Mason nods. I agree. But that woman's dangerous, Elijah. Not by her fault. By what she represents. She's free. She's visible. That makes people in this town nervous. Elijah runs a hand over his face. So what do I do? Let them chase her out like a stray dog? No, Mason says quietly. You get smart. You document everything. Dates, times, letters. Get a witness. A paper trail. You build truth like a wall. So Elijah does. He buys a used camera. Starts snapping photos of the damage. Keeps every note, every threat. Records names, dates, footprints in the dirt. Mason writes it all down. Amara helps too. She writes in looping, careful script. Her English isn't perfect, but her memory is sharp. She remembers faces, whispers, store clerks who won't take her coin. And then one afternoon, Micah comes running from the well with his little arms waving. "Papa! Miss Amara! What is it, baby?" Amara crouches beside him. "There's a lady down by the fence. She poured something on your garden." They race to the back. The cabbage rows are soaked in bleach water. Standing just beyond the property line, holding the empty jug with dainty gloves, is Virginia Olcott. Smiling, unbothered, untouchable. Virginia Olcott stands by the fence like it's her stage, the empty bleach jug swinging from her gloved fingers. The sunlight catches the pearls around her neck, but there's venom in her smile. Elijah approaches with careful, deliberate steps. Amara stands just behind him, holding Micah tight. The air smells sharp, chemicals and ruined vegetables, and the silence is thick enough to slice. "Well," Virginia purrs, "I do hope your little garden wasn't too precious." Elijah stops at the edge of the fence line. He doesn't cross it. Neither does she. But the war between them crackles like lightning. "You trespassed," he says. "Oh no," she replies, eyes wide with false innocence. "I stood on public land. This fence of yours sits exactly on the property line. My surveyor confirmed it." She taps the jug against her palm. "And accidents happen, don't they? You really should have put up a warning. Poisonous plants, perhaps? Unsanitary water? Foreign soil?" "You poisoned my food," Elijah says, voice steady. Virginia laughs. "You act like any of this belongs to you. This land, this town, the people who live here. You're a tenant in a house built on our backs. And now you bring her eyes cut to Amara sharp as razors, into this town, parading her like some prize? You're embarrassing yourself." Amara stiffens but says nothing. Elijah gently reaches back, steadying her with a touch to her wrist. Virginia tilts her head, mock concern painted on her face. "I could have the health department here by morning. Code violations. Immigration concerns. That barn's not zoned for residents. That child could be in danger." "Enough," Elijah says. His voice is calm, but it lands like a hammer. "You've made your point. You think you can break me down, scare me quiet." He reaches into his coat pocket and pulls out a small manila envelope. "But see, I didn't grow up blind. My father taught me how to survive people like you." He opens the envelope, revealing glossy photographs, one after another. A crow hanging on his gate. Slashed chicken throats. Spray-painted slurs. And the crown jewel, a close-up shot of Virginia herself, standing in broad daylight, bleach jug in hand, pouring it over his cabbage rows while Micah watches from the distance. Her smile falters. Elijah raises his voice. "These are time-stamped. Verified. Copies are already with Reverend Mason, and he's sharing them with the NAACP in Jackson. And just for fun, I filed a report with the USDA. You just contaminated a registered garden with chemical waste on camera. That's a federal violation." Virginia's parasol droops. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" he says. "You might run this town with your tea parties and committees, but you don't run the law. Not anymore." She steps back, lips twitching, eyes darting toward the road. "You're still nobody. One phone call and I'll bury you in noise and lawsuits." "And I'll dig through every inch of your legacy with a spoon," Elijah replies. "Starting with your late husband's unregistered properties and the unpaid taxes on your second estate." "You think I don't know? Amara used to be a bookkeeper. She's better at math than you are at lying." Virginia's face goes white. She tries to speak, but her mouth opens and closes like a fish gasping for air. Behind Elijah, a car door slams. Reverend Mason approaches, holding a worn leather folder and a voice recorder. Two young men from Town Trail behind him, black, proud, camera phones rolling. "Smile, Miss Olcott," Reverend Mason says. "You're about to go viral." Virginia Olcott stumbles back, blinking against the rising tide of cameras, truth, and accountability. Her garden party smile is gone, replaced with a flickering panic that can't find a solid place to land. "Turn those things off," she snaps, waving at the young men recording. "You can't film me. This is private property." "It's a public road, Virginia," Reverend Mason replies, his voice smooth but steely. "And you just trespassed onto Elijah's land, again, to commit vandalism. You poisoned food grown for a community pantry and a child's table." "I didn't. This is all twisted." "Lies. That picture could be anyone." "You people," she bites the word off too late. The air freezes. "You people," Amara says quietly, stepping forward. "You mean people who don't look like you? Or people who don't know their place?" Virginia's face crumples, and for the first time, she looks old. Small. Fragile, but not in the way she pretends to be. "Elijah," she says, changing tactics with a fake tremble. "We've always tried to be neighborly. I've helped your son when I could. This isn't necessary." Micah's voice cuts through the moment like a lightning bolt. "You said my mama was a mistake." The little boy stands there, mud on his boots, his tiny hands curled into fists. His voice doesn't waver. "You said Papa was stupid for marrying someone from a catalog." The silence that follows is suffocating. Virginia tries to deny it, her lips flapping around half-formed words, but then another voice speaks. "Got her saying it right here," says one of the men, holding up his phone. "She said it during the bake sale 2 weeks back. Didn't know I was recording when she started whispering to Mrs. Thorne." He presses play. Virginia's voice crackles out. "They're a phase. He'll come to his senses once she burns a roast or ends up pregnant with some jungle baby. That's how those stories always end." The recording stops. The damage is done. Virginia gasps. "That recording is illegal. Defamation. I'll sue you for." Elijah raises a hand. "You said you had nothing to hide, Virginia. Now we all know better." From behind the line of neighbors now forming on the road, black, white, and everyone in between, Sheriff Dalton's cruiser creeps into view. He steps out, face unreadable, and nods at Elijah. "Got your evidence," the sheriff says. "Talked to the county assessor, too. Turns out your fence, Miss Alcott, is 12 feet over the property line, not his. And that footage of you dumping bleach." He jerks his head toward Reverend Mason. "That's already been passed along to the EPA." Virginia's knees wobble. "You can't," she chokes. "I'll call Judge Hemsworth. He's an old friend. He'll make this disappear." "No, he won't," says a calm voice from behind the crowd. Mrs. Grant, a soft-spoken librarian and one of the most respected women in town, steps forward, holding a printed transcript from the homeowners' meeting. "I spoke to the judge this morning. He saw the photos. He has a granddaughter with asthma and eats from a garden just like Elijah's. He's disgusted." Virginia's parasol slips from her hand. She doesn't bend to pick it up. Cameras continue rolling. Her world unravels in real time, committee seats vacated, gossip curdling into outrage, allies turning their backs. Her empire of veiled racism, fake smiles, and tight control is collapsing, and she can feel every brick fall. Elijah steps back, arm around Amara. Micah grabs his mother's hand. Together, they turn, walking toward their home, heads high, hearts heavy but whole. Behind them, the queen of the town stands dethroned, alone in the wreckage she built herself. The news breaks before dawn. Local HOA leader under investigation for environmental tampering, hate speech allegations. Virginia Alcott's face is plastered across the local station. The footage loops, her bleaching Elijah's garden, the bake sale recording, and the moment the sheriff read her rights. She's wearing pearls in the mugshot. No smile. By noon, the HOA has issued a formal statement distancing themselves. Virginia is removed from the board, her name scrubbed from every committee and charity plaque she fought to control. The realtor who once boasted about her neighborhood planning now whispers that her house will be a hard sell. It gets worse. The EPA files formal charges, tampering with soil near a children's food site. The community pantry partners cut ties. Lawsuits pile in from both the county and the farmers' co-op. The garden Elijah built with his bare hands becomes central to the case, featured in interviews, photographs, and a growing online campaign. #GrowWithElijah trends for 3 days. Elijah watches the chaos unfold not with glee, but with quiet resolve. He doesn't want revenge. He wants peace. The garden is replanted. Neighbors bring seedlings, compost, tools, some embarrassed, some teary-eyed. Mr. and Mrs. Collins, who never spoke more than a hello, help fix the fence Virginia tore down. Even old Mr. Beckett, who once crossed the street to avoid Elijah, shows up with a rain barrel and an apology. Micah gets more birthday invitations than he's had in his life. Amara, Amara, watches it all with guarded eyes. The wound of being called a mistake doesn't vanish, but every smile from Micah, every hand reaching out to help, stitches something back together. You sure you want to stay? Elijah asks her one morning, their hands in the soil. She doesn't answer with words. Just gently takes his hand, laces her fingers through his. The town starts to shift. At church, Reverend Mason's sermon isn't about sin or salvation, it's about silence. About how watching wrong happen is a sin too. About how white fences don't mean purity, and polite smiles can hide poison. Some leave the service early. Most stay. Later, Mrs. Grant starts a new neighborhood association, open to all, with a rotating leadership and transparency in every vote. Their first act? A scholarship for young gardeners in Micah's name. Micah walks taller. The nightmares stop. He stops asking if Amara's really gonna stay. Because now he knows. She is on a warm Saturday. Elijah stands at the edge of the garden, watching Micah and Amara chase each other between the rows. Tomatoes bloom where the bleach once soaked. Bees hum around new wildflowers. A car pulls up, one of those sleek electric ones. A news crew steps out. We'd love to interview you again, Mr. Dorsey, the woman says, smiling. Your stories inspired a lot of folks. Especially fathers. Especially folks raising kids in places where they're told they don't belong. Elijah considers it. Then he shakes his head gently. I already told my story. Now I'm just living it. She nods, respecting the choice. As the car drives away, he turns back to the garden. The sun is setting. Gold light spills over everything, rows of green, the laughter of his son, the warmth of a woman who chose to stay. He exhales. For the first time in a long time, he feels home.